to JSA TV, your virtual newsroom for telecom professionals. Joining us here today, we're honored to have our friend, Mr. Hunter Newby, CEO of Allied Fiber. Hunter, welcome to JSA TV.
Hi, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about Allied Fiber and why you built this network.
Well, Allied Fiber, and the purpose and the genesis of the Allied Fiber system is really to solve physical layer interconnection problems here in the United States. We're building a neutral, open system to provide abundant dark fiber and access points and neutral co-location facilities along what we refer to as the superstructure that will link the major cities and submarine cables to connect the continents to the United States, building a thoroughfare that everyone can have access to. And that really levels the playing field and provides the country with access to dark fiber in places that it never had before to help us open up the country and bring benefits to certain areas that haven't had it, and also help drive the economy and growth for all networks.
And so what's different about your network versus any other dark fiber providers in the U.S.?
It has several differences. Primarily, we're not a carrier. We don't sell any lit service, but also we're really in the real estate business. The fiber itself is a facilitator for us to lease rack space or cabinet space in our co-location facilities, which are spaced approximately every 60 miles along the system. We also have the most recent modern generation fiber that we're using from Corning, which is really what all the latest and greatest 100 gigabit DWDM equipment and all the vendors have been trialing their equipment in labs on. So our system provides an abundant amount of that type of dark fiber, which utilizes that equipment optimally in the long haul. We also have physical splice points. Depending on the right-of-way partner that we're working with, the splice points are either 3,000 or 5,000 feet apart. And on a system the size of Allied Fiber, that's a pretty short increment. And those splice points are really analogous to on-ramps and off-ramps to a highway. And the Allied Fiber co-location facilities that are spaced every 60 miles or so are really analogous to rest stops on a highway system. And all of those attributes are needed for local networks, metropolitan networks, rural networks, cable companies, wireless providers, etc., to connect into the superstructure through the splice points and then place their equipment for generating light signals, and also to interconnect to other networks, internet networks, content networks, etc., within the Allied Fiber co-location facilities. Those physical differences, the splice points, the neutrality of the colos, the newness of the fiber, the abundance of the fiber, and our flat rate pricing, all together really are what makes Allied Fiber unique. There just isn't any other system or provider like it presently in the United States that's handling this type of geography. Metropolitan dark fiber networks are one thing, carrier-neutral colo facilities in cities are another, and we really blend the two in the Allied Fiber system.
And how does your network system help folks out in rural communities with internet access?
Well, the basis of the Allied Fiber system in connecting the continents starts and stops with the submarine cable landings and the major international networks that meet at those points. Those networks are the ones that need their own dark fiber today to get across the country terrestrially. They no longer can continue to afford to buy lit service. They really want their own dark fiber. A lot of these are not even carriers or service providers at all. They are enterprise, non-carrier commercial networks. And it's their demand that's helping us launch this business and build enough fiber so that as we pass through the counties and the towns along the route between the major cities and those international interconnection points, our physical splice points are access points for anything, but particularly for the future of rural America. So now a lot of geography in the United States that has been, heretofore not accessible from a fiber perspective will be. And that will enable data centers to be created where they can find abundant and essentially much cheaper power, but also to enable rural networks, municipal networks, county networks in areas that were unreachable to be built, because they have a way to get connected back into the wholesale international network landscape, where the most number of choices, the best quality service at the best possible cost per bit exists.
I was just speaking to Erin Dunn over at Vertical Systems Group, and she just came out with a stat, which I found staggering, that only about 35–36% of U.S. commercial buildings actually have this fiber access, and that there's really an astounding fiber gap here in this country. How do you feel the U.S. stacks up against other global countries? Where are we, and what can we do about it?
Well, the current state of fiber infrastructure in the United States is where it is. No one can argue that we have what we have, wherever it may be. The question is in the gap, which I saw the Vertical Systems Group report as well, and I saw those statistics, and I tend to believe them. There is a big gap between 35% and 100%. And the question is, what investment is being made to close the gap? What's the plan? Who's administering the plan? What is the nature of the fiber in terms of the business model that's being put in the ground? Is it neutral? Is it available for lease as dark fiber on an individual strand or pair basis? Those questions really are the key to closing the gap. It isn't just about the awareness of the fact that there is a gap, which I feel very strongly about. It isn't just about the capital. It isn't just about the plan, meaning how do you physically design the network. It's the nature of the treatment, the terms and conditions of that fiber itself. So where do we stack up? Truthfully, the United States is very low on the OECD list in terms of broadband speeds and penetration. That's a word that they use because it's about fiber to points, fiber to home, fiber to tower, fiber to a commercial building. And the fact is we're very low on that scale. I think if 35% is the number for office buildings, it's about 30% for cell towers. And that's a difficult thing to really grasp. If you think about the current most modern generation of mobile technology, LTE, long-term evolution, which is part of the fourth generation or 4G. It's not the only sort of technology within that, but it's the most predominant. It's widely known that LTE only really works optimally if fiber is brought to the tower. Fiber can be maybe one microwave hop away, but generally speaking, it needs to be immediately there in order for LTE to work. Well, if we only have fiber to 30% of the towers in the United States, then what does that mean our ultimate LTE coverage, 4G coverage, can be? 30% or close. That's not good. But the reason why the United States is so low on the OECD list is because we're compared to other countries. And the word country is a bit of a misnomer because the other countries on the list above the United States aren't really anywhere close to the geography of the United States. So what really needs to happen is there needs to be a chart that shows the geography as well as the population, which equates to population density, which then has a ranking. The cost to build fiber to all of these points is large, and there needs to be a rationale for the investment. And traditional investment in anything requires a return. And investing in fiber to every point in the United States just because doesn't really work for the people that need to make that investment. They want to know when they're going to get their money back and generally how much they're going to get and what the market's going to bear. That's holding back investment in the space presently, which is holding back the growth of the United States in the networking world that we've all entered, the networking age, which is holding back our GDP and holding back productivity gains, which is having an impact on many other things that are going on today in the world with the United States. And we need to get over this. And a part of it is the Allied Fiber System model being deployed. We don't build fiber to the home. We don't build fiber to the tower. We enable it. We build the superstructure. Just getting that funded is step one, because then it gives sort of meaning and purpose to the other subtending fiber networks that necessarily need to be built.
So my next question is, what can we expect to see from Allied Fiber in the next year or two?
Well, more execution, more development. We're currently building our Miami to Jacksonville to Atlanta route. We have every element of the Allied Fiber system that we had projected would occurring. Interconnections to submarine systems, interconnections to long-haul networks, traditional IXCs, incumbents, cable companies, rural networks, municipal networks, wireless backhaul networks. All of it is happening just in the state of Florida alone, which is pretty incredible. And we're really excited about that. And we know that our model, it's special because it's simple and it's easy to replicate as we move ahead. So the time that we've spent amassing all of the major carrier and network operator contracts has basically gotten that out of the way behind us. That's a lot of legal time spent redlining agreements and things. Now that that's in place, we can begin to execute on the deployment. And as there's demand, we can build phases. We've tried to build in the north, and the cost structure was different. There's still tremendous demand for fiber to the tower and towns and distributed data centers along the way. We have focused on the south and executing from Miami to Atlanta because our cost structure is different, and demand was just as strong there, just as demand is just as strong on the West Coast. And we anticipate in the next 2 years to be able to really expand our model and meet the needs of closing that fiber gap here in the United States.
Hunter, as always, it's a pleasure speaking to you. You're an inspiration, I think, to not only our industry, but to our children who are going to expect that we're laying these railroads of tomorrow, this fiber infrastructure into the country. So thank you, and for more information on Allied Fiber, please check out alliedfiber.com. Thank you again, Hunter, for joining us, and thank you, viewers, for tuning in to JSA TV.